Today is part 3 of our 3-part series, How to Make a Living as an Entertainer. And we are extremely thrilled to dive into When Are You Ready for an Agent with Mr. Gary Berg. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jessica Rosenblatt, and I am the Executive Director of the Ohio Arts Professionals Network. Our mission is to support and grow the touring arts and culture industry within Ohio and the surrounding region. And these free Tuesday Talk series are offered to our members and non-members as a way to educate, enlighten, and keep our community connected. So I appreciate you all tuning in. And of course, these will be shared to our YouTube channel in the coming days. So this webinar series is hosted by the wonderful Gary Berg. He is the owner and founder of Berg Entertainment, which is the largest entertainment provider in the Midwest. Way to go. He's got a book called Entertainers Who Work, and that helps artists turn their talent into full-time careers. And in case you have not already, here's the book for you. Doesn't like the blur. Gary has also worked with 1,000 professional entertainers and celebrities ranging from former presidents of the United States to Grammy Award-winning musicians. And he is joining us today to help artists and agents successfully navigate their way through the entertainment industry. So we're now in week 3, our final episode webinar of our 3-part series. And you've been talking about topics that are so relevant to our artist and agent base here. So thank you once again for joining us and lending your expertise and insight.
Great to be here. Great to be here. I've enjoyed these.
Good. So throughout the series, we started off talking about what it takes to be an entertainer and a performing artist. And last week you discussed how an artist can earn $100,000 a year. And finally, we will discuss when an act is ready for an agent. So I would just like to open the floor here and have you talk about your experience with artists and dive into when an artist is ready for an agent and why. So take it away, Gary.
All right. Well, I will. I'll start it off. I think the main thing is for the artist perspective, it's when you're at a point in your career where you know that your act, I'm going to call it an act, is sellable and has reached a level of professionalism enough that you know people want it. They want to buy it, but you don't know how to reach those people that buy it. I think in a real broad sense, that's it. I think sometimes people might reach a little bit too soon wanting to have an agent and then get frustrated when they don't get one or don't get the proper fit with that. I think it just takes some time. You're your best advocate always, but certainly early in your career, it's important that you understand you're the one who has to get out and probably get yourself on stages in many cases. I think when you eventually have enough experience and you have really good enough promotional materials that a good agent can sell your show to clients, then you're viable to start that search maybe or whatever. And there's 2 ways this happens. One is if you truly have something that's really special and popular, and agents are out looking and seeing and doing, which we always are, we might find you and reach out to you, which is kind of nice. But usually, at least in our case, that's how it was when I started the company, 30 plus years ago. Now it's much more a matter of us having performers get in touch with us saying, will you consider representing me or whatever? And then a lot of things go into place with that. And for us, I'll tell you kind of the steps of the things we look for and where there's misconceptions, I think, on both, sometimes on the agent side, but also on the artist side, and but what we really need. And here are I'll just probably start off with, some of the pitfalls that people have when they're trying to find an agent. And the first thing is they reach out to an agent and say, I have this great act, would you check it out? Blah, 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 blah. And my first, Kevin's first, anybody's first response to that is, well, what do you have for promotional materials that I can see? What kind of Because if you can't sell us, we can't sell you, no matter what. And if your materials are, and this happens way, way, way too often, that the act is so much better than the materials they're using to try and get on stages, that's really sad. So you have to make sure that you're at a point where your act is there and you have professional pictures and a professional video and things like that, so that you look your best and you are your best. And it's representative of truly who you are and what you do. Because without those tools and things, we're not going to really be able to do anything, no matter how good we are really at what we do. So there's some things like that you just have to know. You know, I think another thing that often we see is people overhype what they have, what they can do. And it's like, I'm fabulous, I'm great, I can perform for anybody on anything, doing anything. And it's like, you probably can't, you know, you that's okay that you can't. You should have something that, you know, specifically probably speaks to a certain group, a certain demographic. You have things like that, you know, it's somebody, you know, we see it a lot with comedians who say, you know, well, I can do clubs, I can do cruise ships, I can do corporate events, I can, and many of them can, but most of them cannot. It's a real different animal to do a corporate event or a family show at an outdoor festival versus doing a comedy club. And even cruise ships kind of have their own unique way that they look at comedians and things too. And certainly what you're going to put on a theater stage, you have to be careful with, because some theaters have no problem with comedians that are going to do R-rated shows. Most theaters do have problems with that. And so you have to make sure you're able to do the right amount of time and really be hot, top notch, and have the amount of product to fill that space without going down a bad route. So making sure you're ready, making sure you're not overhyping. I've had, I think, 3 acts in the years I've done this come up with this, oh, I'm going to make you a lot of money. And I can't tell you how much that turns me off. It's like, no, you're not. Nobody's coming to me because they really want to make me a lot of money. That's just such bullshit to begin with that I can't even handle it. It's like, that's not going anywhere. You know, it's like, so I think that comes into play. I think another thing that's really misconstrued is that anybody who's looking for an agent, and any good agent does this with any act that they work with, is that it's a partnership. It really is. There's a give and take with it. And, you know, so I think a lot of times acts say, well, they're going to book me on this stuff and they're going to take this money as a commission. And the truth of the matter is, no, the agent doesn't take a dime from you. The agent's going to get paid by the client, like you're going to get paid by the client. And it might be that the client is going to pay the agent 20% to do all the contracting, to vet the acts, to make those connections, to show up at the conferences, to spend the money, to do the things that come up with that, to have the insurance and do all these things, you know, and have that done. That's what they're getting paid for. And then the performer is going to get paid 80% for doing what they do on the stage. It's a partnership. And I think the acts that understand that have such better relationships with agents and have such more successful relationships. The agent isn't your enemy. They're the person. If you have the right setup, they're there to help you, and they work hard. And you don't want to disenfranchise them by saying, "Oh, you're just sitting there taking phone calls." It's like that never happens. People, I think that happens. That doesn't happen. It's a constant. You know, I always think acts have to look at it a little bit differently and have to realize they're probably not going to pay a dime to have talented full-time people out there promoting them, you know, and if they keep that in mind and be appreciative and understanding of that, and just helping that agent have the tools they need to be successful in selling their act, you can have some wonderful, positive, long-term, healthy relationships. And that's what everybody should strive for. You know, on the same token, it's the exact same way with agents. I think good agents realize you better know the people and know what their wants and desires are, what their talents are, what their needs are, and think of them as human beings, and they're not a thing. It's not like selling, you know, a car, it's selling a human being, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with that, which makes it more difficult. But that act has to trust the agent understands what's best for them, and consequently, the act needs to understand it needs to work for the agent and the agency as well. So those are just some real basic things that you better have a handle on. And again, then you go back to, okay, I've done this, I've worked in this. Let's say you're a musical act, you're a trio, and you've worked at a bunch of clubs over the years, and it's gone well, and you're getting good and getting more popular all the time. And now you've been asked to perform at some weddings, and those have gone well, and you're getting some income. But your real desire is to maybe have a little bit more of a show or something, and you want to be on stages at a theater, or you want to be on stages at a state fair, wherever it might be. But you don't know how to do that. You've been able to work your way, or you want to get to better clubs or into better wedding venues or whatever. Agencies, for the most part, we're not one of these. We have divisions within our agency. So we have a cruise ship division, a PAC, a theater division. We have a corporate division. We have a fair festival division. So we're a little bit different. But usually you have to think, what market am I best for? Is it multiple? Some people can. And what is it? And then start to look at, okay, what the people that I think are successful within what I do, who do they work with? What kind of agencies are those? Where do I find those? If you want to be in theaters, you should be at conferences that are the same conferences you're at, Jessica, that work in the performing arts world. That's what it is, because that's where you're going to run into those agencies. If you want to be in fairs, virtually every state has their own state fair association. They have an annual meeting, and they have showcases. And if you want to do colleges, it's NACA, and it's their showcases and their regional conferences. So there's very specific markets for that. And the corporate ones, it's a lot harder. It's a harder market because they're kind of one-offs all the time. But look for agents that work in the markets, and then check them out. Check out references. What's being said about them. Do they have a track record and things? And if you feel good that, boy, I sure wish I could work potentially with this agency or these agencies, then the thing is to try and actually set up a conversation with them and just say, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's my promotional materials. What do you think? And and the nice part is, the agents that have done this and are good and professional, and you have a lot that, belong to OAPN and stuff, they're going to get it. And they're going to say, well, with this act, I think you're viable. I think this is probably your price point where we could potentially sell you on shows. And we could go higher, but you get less work. We could go lower and you get a lot more work. But this seems to be the fair and right price for this act to compete with other acts that are potentially similar. They might say, I like the act. You have a ton of talent, but there's a million of you out there doing it. And I'll say that point blank, we've run into that forever with magicians. They're really good and really talented, but for us, it's like, what do you have that's truly unique, different, special, better? And when you find those people, you get really excited as an agency because they're so amazing. But there's many, many, many very talented acts that we just say we can't work with because we know for a fact we're not going to be able to get you work. And we're already filled with our roster with people who do that. And we're going to be loyal to those people as they've been loyal to us. Not that rosters don't turn over, but just understand it's probably not going to happen with the first phone call you make. It's not going to happen. And then in virtually all cases, if there is an interest and a mutual interest, then conversations start to happen. And potentially the best scenario is that agent gets a chance to go out and see a live performance and meet with you live. And there has to be this kind of courtship where you find out you like this person, you trust this person. Do you think this person knows what they're doing? Are they talented? Are they a good human being? You go through that whole process, and And then generally what might happen, what's happened for us a lot is we say, well, let's try some things and see how it goes. And then we put them out on a show or two or three, and we always follow up with those clients and say, well, how'd it go? And they might say, oh, they were wonderful. They got here early. They advanced the date beautifully. They were great. People loved them. They stayed afterwards, talked to the people in the audience who appreciated it. And they did, oh yeah, we would be very interested in having them back. Well, now you know you have something. You know, we're other times I might go out and say, well, they were really good and they were really nice, but they weren't really as good as the other acts that you provided for us. And we know that too. And so, it's that process of feeling it out. And then if we get to that point where the act thinks, boy, this is a good fit, we think it's a good fit, the timing is right for that, then you enter into a contract to do that. And the contracts can vary a bit, but they're all predominantly the same. But, some of them might be that the agent is going to represent you exclusively just in a geographical area, or potentially just a certain market type, or whatever. So it doesn't have to be that they represent you with everything, everywhere. We work with a lot of performers who have different agents who get them work on TV and in movies and recording projects and things. We don't do those things. They might work with other agents in clubs, whether they're bands or they're comedians, because we don't book clubs at all. And we realize you might have to put all these things together to be really successful. So Kevin might sign an act simply for the PAC market, and it might even be in a 12-state area where he knows he's very strong in that particular act. He could sell on a number of dates. And but maybe it might be that that act already has an agent who's getting them a lot of work on the East Coast, but can't get anything in the Midwest, and they want to expand into the Midwest. So nothing is set in stone that there's one right way or one certain way you do it. It always tends to be very unique and specific to the situation. And yet some of the things within the template of the contract are always the same. You set what fees are going to be, commission fees. You go through when payments happen. You go through what the performer's responsible for, what the agency is responsible for. And, I think some red flags that would come up doing this. One really big one to me is anybody who promises an act a lot and doesn't know the act very well. I think it's totally fine to say, looking at what you do, looking at what we've done, I have a strong feeling that we'll be able to contract you on $50,000 worth of shows over the next 18 months. But I can't guarantee it, but I certainly think that would be in the realm. But anybody who just says, oh, this is a great act, we should be able to book you for hundreds of thousands of dollars, blah, 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 blah. It's like, I'd be real nervous about that. It might happen on occasion, but generally it's that real honest discussion so people can make honest decisions. Is really important. And so, yeah. So I'm rattling here, Jessica. Do you have a question that you'd like to ask at this point?
I have 3 questions that have popped up in my head as you've been
Great.
talking. So yes,
Great.
I do. Let me figure out which one I want to ask first. But so you kind of covered this, but I want to talk about the role of the agency. From everything that you said, it sounds like the role of the agency is to book the act into the place of, like Kevin has the PACs, you've got another department. The artist needs to come with their marketing materials. There's obviously this whole other world of marketing and press, and then getting the audience and the, boosting the shows where they're playing. So your role is to get the act into the venue. Then what are the other steps that an artist needs to think about when it comes to getting people to come into that show? Or, what are the other things that go along with that? And what's your responsibility versus theirs?
Great question. An agent's job and their role is to get you on paid performance gigs. That's what it is. They're not managers, they're not promoters, they're not PR people. What they are is agents. And, those are other elements. So those other things you have to think about is, are you going to have someone who, what we've really seen I think especially since COVID is most performers have gotten much more savvy with the ability to use social media to promote themselves. But if you're not savvy with that, you either have to learn to be, or you have to find help outside of your agency to do that. I think a real good case in point in that is, our agency, we don't have much of a social media presence because nobody cares about our agency, but they love the acts. So the acts have the social media presence, and the acts that are really popular, if you see what the B Twins do or what Mary Mack does, and these people, they're out there in a good way, and they're building an audience base that will draw people to buy tickets and to pay for things. So that's another area that the performer has to be aware of, that they're going to have to do. And also it's just the manager part. Are you capable of making your own travel plans, making the hotel reservations if need be, and flights, and even production questions? And are you providing your own sound and lights? And if you have to, and are you buying it? Are you bringing it? Are you renting it? Those are on the artists. Those aren't things the agency does. Again, managers do it, agents do not. So again, I think that is a great question, because I don't think it's very clear. There's a lot to be done. And what happens generally is that the acts do it themselves, all those other things, until they reach a point where financially it makes more sense to hire someone else to do it. And it might be an administrative help part-time. It might be an actual manager. It might be a combo of those things. Those, or hiring your own sound and light person who brings the stuff, sets it up. It's hard to pay for that off the front, but most of our acts set up their own stuff, do it, tear it down, been doing that until they reach a certain point. And it works pretty well, because obviously it just puts more money in their pocket doing it that way.
Great. You touched on this, but you talked about the partnership when artists are coming to you, and if an agency is saying, "Oh, well, we'll book you $100,000 a year," are there things that the artist should look out for in a contract with an agency? What's the typical approach to an agency? Is it contracted that you're the only agent that can book them for a year or 5 years? What does that typically look like?
Yeah, I think you'd want to look at a copy of a contract that the agency has and see, anything you have questions on, anything you have concerns about. When we sign anybody to a exclusive arrangement, which is what we do, we sign them for a 2-year contract, and then it renews annually if both parties want it to. And the reason it's 2 years at the beginning is it takes time. I guarantee you the agency is going to spend a lot of extra time and money and energy to take an act that no one has heard of, or very few people have heard of, and expose that act to a bigger, broader audience of buyers. And so there's more cost, there's more risk, there's more all those things on the agency side. And you don't want to do all that for 1 year and then have that act say, "I'm not doing this anymore because now you've helped me get all these things." So that's important. I think you also, when you're looking at a representation contract, if I was a performer, I'd also want to see, what does a performance contract look like? Because those will have book back clauses and things like that. Ours is, if we put you into, let's say we put you into a theater, if you go back and, even if our relationship ends, if you go back to that theater within a year from the date of the last time we put you in, you'll still owe us a commission on that, because that's still a residual from that. But after that, it's not. But we have a 1-year book back clause on our contracts, and I've seen it. I have actually seen it where some of those book back clauses have been 5 years, and that's crazy to me, but it happens. So I think those are things that you would certainly want to look at. You'd want to pay attention to. You'd want to have a couple people read it, and in a perfect world, you'd have an attorney read it as well, just to make sure you're taken care of. Because we'll have things in there saying, if there is a disagreement or whatever, that our contract says we'll try and settle it with arbitration in the state of Minnesota, because that's where we are. some people that doesn't work, so that gets crossed out. That's fine. You know, you just don't know. We have to have a starting point. Contracts are always written, should be written to protect both parties. Okay. And that's why even when we do contracts, the performance contracts, I think that sometimes gets lost in the shuffle, is that, you know, it's to protect the artist, because if the client all of a sudden decides, oh, I guess we're not going to do it, they still have to pay for it. Okay. Because you've planned your life and your work, and you've probably turned down other work to take that date. So it protects the artist that way. It also protects the client, because if they book an act and then the act gets a better deal, a better opportunity on that same date, they can't just say, I'm blowing you off, I'm not showing up because I took a new thing. So contracts are always in place, should always be in place to protect both parties. So making sure you understand them, that it works for both parties. You know, we might have somebody who says, love to work with you, but I want to keep these 6 clients because I've been working with them and they're friends or whatever. And like, in those cases, just our agency will say, that's fine. We'll write those in the contract that you can keep those. But anything new that comes up that comes directly to you, I don't care if it's from your uncle, you know, that gets sent to us, because we're taking care of your master calendar and we're putting it all together. And at that point, the performer doesn't even know that you might, as a performer, be out on 6 proposals that you're not aware of, because that's not what your job is. The job is for the agent to be doing a good job of getting that out. So again, it's agents have their job to do. They have their roles to put you on stages. They need to be protected. And by that, I also mean the biggest problem performers have is they book themselves at $500 and want the agency to book them at $3,500. And it's like, well, if you're a $500 act, you're a $500 act. If you're a $3,500 act, and all that happens if you do that is that from an agency side, when we have had that happen, and it doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's like, it makes us look like somehow we're thieves or something, and all we're trying to do is protect the performer. And that's one thing I will say about this whole concept is, I think agents get a very bad rap. Some earn it, most don't. You know, the whole pricing thing is they're there to try and have that performer be successful, because, you know, if we don't sell it, we don't make a dime, you know. So you look at that, that's kind of it. And the thing is, I can guarantee you, we have been taken advantage of and screwed by acts a lot more than acts are screwed by agents. You know, people who, I'm not going to tell them about this lead because this is something else, or I'm going to do this on the side and not let people know. It's like, that's not the way it works. You don't build trust. You don't grow. You don't have a mutually successful, positive experience by doing those things. So I would say the time for an agent is when you're ready to build a partnership with a really good company or person who can help build your career and get you on stages. And for that, it's a pretty unique skill. It's a pretty unique business. And to be honest, it costs a lot of money. You know, I was just looking through our stuff, and we have 9 people on staff, and before any one of us can make 1 penny, we generally have to book in that neighborhood of $2.1 million. Because there's rent, there's phones, there's computers, there's insurance, there's a million things of travel and memberships, and you go on, and advertising and printing and you know, tech help, and just everything that comes up, and licenses, and you go on and on and on. And it's like, it's amazing how expensive it is. And we know that artists have expenses, great expenses, when they're doing it. We get it. The artist is going to get 80% of what we sell, and we're going to get 20. And by doing that, we need to sell $2 million to basically pay for our expenses before our people get paid. And our agents need to get paid well, or else why would they do this? Just like performers. So, yeah.
Well, this is a perfect time then for my last question. So this actually happened in a conversation with another agent, and they had mentioned that they won't even look at taking an act on unless they're already generating over $300,000 of income in a year. So I wonder if that is normal across the field, or if agencies such as yours would look at an artist who's maybe just getting started, because it's obviously very hard for an act to do something like that on their own without maybe already being with another agency. Does the income that the artist is already bringing in have an effect on whether or not you take on the act?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I don't really know what other agencies do to the most part with that. If somebody is already generating a lot, it's that'd be wonderful. We don't run into that very often. We're much more of a developmental agency. I think in the PAC world, that's a bigger thing. And Kevin certainly works with more acts that, can generate and have been generating some income, higher number income numbers. But for us, again, I'll say it's someone like, well, let's take a comedian like Tommy Ryman that we represent. He's generating a good deal of income off of social media, off of writing, off of product sales, and off of really good club work. We don't touch any of that. We represent him in the PAC, in the corporate market. And in those markets, he hasn't made a lot. He's done some, obviously, but not a lot. But our goal is to make sure those markets and those things really increase a lot, because he's really good in those markets. So he came to us with virtually nothing except a great show, a great human being, and good promo. And then we got a chance to see a show and thought this will work extremely well with our clients. So let's get him out there. And we started showcasing him and started, putting him out there, and it's been very, very positive. But yeah, for some acts, I guess for the most part, I'd kind of run away from those agencies that say that, because I think they want you to hand them something beyond your act. I think in some ways they might want to hand you business, and I'm not so sure I'm comfortable thinking that's a real fair way to start. Again, I'll say it. We'll take chances. We'll invest a lot of time and a lot of money with the chance that we won't sell the act and we won't make a dime, and we'll lose. And we certainly lose on acts, but we certainly win and gain on many, many more acts than we lose on. And I think anybody can book an act 1 time, 5 times, 20 times, probably. That's not an issue. That's not a problem. The thing that's important with agencies and exclusivity is, we've booked a juggler for 30 years and, can make $100,000 a year for 30 years. That kind of sustainability is what's really, really valuable for many performers with an agency. And the relationship when that's done is stronger than it's ever been. It's a mutual respect and understanding that we can sustain it, because it's easy to do things once or twice or 5 times or 10 times. And I think performers see that a lot, as they have this one incredibly great gig and it's like a drug, and it's like, well, that's what I want to do. And it's like, great, that's what you should want to do. But they're not going to come in because you got one. Now the goal is maybe in 5 years you have 50 of those, but you're not going to go from having one of those to having 50 of those the next year because you signed with an agent.
You are an absolute wealth of knowledge, Gary.
I got all kinds of weird stuff in my head. So
yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, I don't want to take up all the time here. Are there any questions from anybody on the call today that they would like to ask Gary, since you have him right here in front of you? I see some screens moving around. If you'd like to ask a question. Oh, there's Heather.
Heather, what do you got for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, 6 devices. This is the best I could get. I've been having Zoom issues. So, I have a backstory this, but I want to ask, with when you do the contracting with the presenter, do you have your artists sign those? Do you have them see them and review them beforehand? What is your process?
Kevin, do you want to take that one? I mean, see, that's your market.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, our contracts at the company are all between the artist and the buyer. They're on our paperwork, but our agency is not a party to the contract. So the artist will sign and see every single contract, everything that goes through there. So, you know, our contract department will work with them to make sure they understand what's in the contracts. If it's a buyer issued contract, our contract department will review those, make markings, markups as needed, but we do not ever sign on behalf of an artist.
Yeah, I'm a real firm believer. I saw this. I managed a professional group before I started the agency. And I think the thing that I think agencies a lot of times got bad press for, they should have, is there's a world of buy sell, where Heather, I buy your act I call you and say, what's the cheapest you can do this date for? And you tell me $1,000. And I know the client is 2,500. So I do a contract with you for 1,000 and I sell it to the client for 2,500.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
I have heard of this happening, but
it happened. And the thing is, so I think at any point in time, if an agent is not willing to tell you what the show was sold for, I'd tell them to go to hell.
That hasn't been what my experience is. My experience is I'll start to work with someone and say, I want to see and sign my contracts. Then they get signed, they get executed without me seeing them, and there are lots of mistakes in them. I have a whole list of mistakes, but so yeah, so then I get frustrated because it feels like they feel that I'm being too controlling, but sometimes it's that I'm not being protected, and the presenter isn't being protected because the document isn't representing the agreement. So I was wondering how it usually happens, because I was just feeling a bit powerless in my own life.
Well, I think that no matter what, any show you're going to do at some point should have your signature on it.
Thank you.
And whether that's the agency's doing a contract with the presenter, and then they're doing one with you, you're going to you should be able to get through all those questions before you sign that one that's with you. I know we do, like a really great agency in the college market. There's Scott Bass and Bass Schuler. They're out of Chicago. Very, very good college agency. And I know they sign for a lot of their acts, but generally what they do is when they confirm everything, they have a worksheet that confirms all the details that they send to the act. So the act has all the details. So if there's anything that's messed up, the act can catch it and get back ahead of time. So, and what we do too, besides, what Kevin said, we have the act sign it, we're the intermediary, but we also always have our acts contact the client directly and advance the date with a series of questions of what time is arrival, what is the stage setup, what are we doing, just because it works better for everyone. There's no surprises. And even it's like if there's a hotel room, it's whose name is it under, where's the hotel, those types of things. It's, the more you communicate, the better. And if you have nothing to hide, the client knows they're paying us 20% for what we're doing. That. They're paying 80% to you. There's nothing, no one should have anything to hide. And so
no, I don't feel that that's been the case. And I mean, I know that there's been genuine earnestness in wanting to wanting to have a profitable relationship. That's not the exact, a healthy relationship and to book the work. But I'm back to being self-represented, which right now is great. But it is a lot for me as one person to do all the things. So this was one particular point that I was curious about, because it seems to have been part of the issues in the working relationships.
Well, and it is also a real part of, I mean, we really try and do our very, very best, but we have right now about 300 performers we represent exclusively. And we don't know all the complete exact nuances of every show. Some we obviously know much better. Some are certainly easier, and we can get information and try and do that. But, it gets down to the point of, if they're providing meals, do they have to be vegetarian and do they eat before or after and all these things? And it's impossible for us to stay on top of that. So that's why we really like it when the acts advance the date, to have that phone call. And we don't, we make sure every attempt is made to do that on the phone versus even text to build the relationship. So, this is a real human being and they're going to show up, and probably I like this person before they ever step foot in my theater. Those things are important. So over communicating, in my opinion, has always been better than under communicating.
Yeah, which I definitely appreciate. So anyway, so thank you for your. I have a million other questions, but we'll just leave it at that for now. But so right now I'm back to being self-represented. I've learned a lot with the experiences that I've had, and eventually, hopefully, I'll find a good fit with someone.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good luck. Yes, great. Thank you.
Great. Heather, thanks again for joining us for another one of our 3-part series sessions here with Gary. Are there any other questions? I know it's always scary to raise the hand and ask, but if there are any other questions, go ahead. In the meantime, Gary or Kevin, anything that either of you would like to add? I know, Kevin, we've worked closely, obviously through OAPN. We've had a handful of your artists showcase. I've watched your artist showcase at other conferences. Love who you represent, and your hands-on doing the job, going to these conferences. Do you have any words of advice for folks that are looking for agents that are coming to, say, OAPN? Should they go up to Kevin and say, "Hey, I'm great, I'd like you to be my agent," or what's the right approach if somebody's
stay away from me at the conferences. No, and really, I mean, that's a great question, but the conferences are not the place to approach the agents for representation. The conferences for us are where we need to focus on selling the artists we currently represent, and and building the relationships with the buyers that we work with. I do think, it's important to be there, and you can, if you're in a small group meeting, if you're getting to at night at the bar, getting to meet people, if you're getting to know the artists that they represent that might be there showcasing, doing your homework at those conferences is certainly appropriate. You can pick up brochures, look to see who might be a good fit. Are you, if you've got a similar, say you're a tribute of this artist and they have one, they're probably not going to take you. Move on to the next booth, but don't expect to get 15 minutes, half hour of an agent's time at a conference. Is just not likely to happen. But with that said, I know Heather showcases as an independent artist. That's a way to get agents to see what you're doing. So it's certainly, the conferences are important for all business and all relationship building.
It's essential. Hey,
Heather has the book.
All right.
It just came yesterday, so
all right,
I'll get to read it.
Wait, so I was gonna say, if anybody it's not working.
Look
There
at
you
Heather's.
go.
Mine's working.
I don't like hawking books, but I will just say it's a really cheap, very valuable tool to help people and answer a lot of questions. So,
And it's signed.
Oh, all right. Nice.
Mine's not signed.
I'm sorry, I'll do that.
I don't know. This is what I got. Sorry, I interrupted.
Next time I see you,
was,
Jess, I'll sign
the
it.
publisher had me come inside a bunch, but that's cool.
I'll say it's a fantastic book, and like I said on part 1, it's a fast read. But it provides so much useful information. There are basics in there that I always say that sometimes you don't know the right questions to ask when you have no idea of the world. And I think Gary does a great job of breaking these things down and asking those questions and providing the information. And also your insights that you have with your entertainers. I think those are really great. You have thoughts from the pros, and actually one of the, oh, I love your adopted motto of "Don't suck." That's
That's still the best advice you give anybody, is just don't suck. That's
I think it's fantastic.
and by the way, we do tell that to every act, that when we're at their shows and there are acts, that's what we'd say to them before they take the stage, is just don't suck. That's it. So
I love it. But yeah, in 68 and 69 and beyond, you've got reasons acts fail and reasons acts succeed. And, you know, again, your book just covers a lot of things, and the questions that you need to ask yourself as an artist, and just the valuable information of breaking it down in a simplistic approach on how you can make money doing the job, breaking it down with, you know, this is how much you can make from this venue and this venue. And, you know, understanding, I think a huge world is understanding that conferences are out there like these, where agents are out there like you, and, you know, this job is viable. It just takes a lot of work, and it takes talent, and it takes meeting the right people to help you understand a world that, you know, you just don't understand until you're in. So I can't thank you enough for joining us for this 3-part
it's been
series.
fun. It's
Gary,
been fun.
I am sad that it's over, but possibly we can do something again in the near future.
Just let me know. Love to. If or when that happens, that'd be great. So
Wonderful.
Oh, Gary, all the time.
thank you. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you again. This part 3 will be posted to our YouTube channel. Part 1 and 2 are already posted to our YouTube channel, as well as our website, oapn.org, under the Tuesday Talks tab. And Gary, until our next time meeting, thank you again. Kevin?
Yeah, I might have to tag along with Kevin on one of his conferences and say hi to everybody. It'd be fun.
OAPN 2024, big announcement coming September 1st, and other conferences happening this year. We've got Max Expo in Indianapolis, September 17th through 21st.
21st.
Yeah, we got it. And
I
then
think.
Arts Market down in North Carolina, November 6th through 8th. So
And WA.
and
WA, September 5th through 8th, something like.
Any other conferences we're missing?
Oh yeah, Arts
North Carolina.
Oh, we did Arts Market. Arts Northwest is in there. APAP.
Right. APAP's next year, technically.
The virtual Florida pitch.
So there's a lot out there for everybody.
Yeah.
So get connected with one organization, and then it'll open your world to many others. So, all right, well, I won't keep you.
Good luck.
So thank you so much for everything, Gary. Big round of applause.
Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.